Chapter 21. Flight. Felicity had spent the afternoon with Reuben's mother, whom she had found organising the village stores of food, braiding her daughter's hair, and giving counselling to a young heartsick Orion at once. Mrs. O shared with her some delicious liffles. Felicity had tasted these on her first night. The vast curly leaves of all different colours were not only delicious but full of energy too, Mrs. O explained. They broke like an extra thick poppadom, and each colour had its own special taste. Mrs. O said green were her favourite, but Felicity preferred the pale violet ones, like sea salt and raspberry vinegar flavour, she decided. She and Mrs. O spent the late afternoon just talking. It was lovely. Felicity felt her strength and energy coming back to her in this wonderful place. Mrs. O spoke a lot about Reuben and his growing years. He was always special, she told Felicity. She described the moment he was born without his tail. His father and I trusted we would understand the reason one day. When he was called to the quest, we wondered if this was its meaning. Reuben had grown into a calm and brave young Orion. His leadership qualities were not in question. He led most of the young Orion into deep waters on far too many occasions. Now that we see him with you, Felicity, we believe we may understand. Felicity had not really known what Mrs. O meant. She wished Reuben were back. It's all so confusing. What does his mother mean, she thought. And what on earth happened in the banyan? Suddenly Little Green had been let out, beaming. Peering into the fading light, Felicity could see the outline of Reuben, but no Orcadia. As he walked towards them, Felicity felt strangely shy. She stepped back behind the cover of Little Green. She needed time to compose herself. She was glad she'd bathed today. Deep in the recesses of her rapidly dissolving jeans, she'd found a lip balm. The adventure so far had miraculously not spoilt it. Felicity fought with it desperately now. Open, open, you stupid little tin, she cursed, knocking Little Green as the lid gave way. She jabbed a bit onto her lips, rolled them around, and stuffed the tin back into her pocket. The familiar smell of the balm was intoxicating. For a moment she was back with Al, getting ready to go shopping. Al constantly stole Felicity's makeup, but Felicity always forgave her. Al would lend Felicity any of her clothes without question, which was essential as Felicity could never find the great clothes Al did. She blamed her mother, but secretly knew it was probably her own fault for never quite being sure what she liked. "Hello, Felicity," said a deep voice. She looked up, thoughts of her bedroom gone as her eyes looked straight into Reuben's. His expression made her toes curl up, literally. She had to force herself to uncurl them as it was hurting. She took a big breath to steady herself. He was quite changed. He was taller, broader. His face was shadowed with new growth around the jaw. His voice dropped to a rich bass. If she'd written this in a story, people would have said it was ridiculous. But he had overnight become not just a male Orion, but a huge, glorious one. He smiled as she stared without shame. She began to be aware of the others' amusement as they watched her reaction. Pippi entered her mind. Yes, transformation is an amazing thing, isn't it, Felicity? Felicity felt a lurch inside her. She looked away. "What's wrong, Felicity?" said Reuben as he saw the flicker in her expression. Sheer panic flashed across her face. Reuben reached out, but he was too late. She was running anywhere, but not to be faced with this man who'd taken away her friend. She couldn't go far as it was becoming so dark. She collapsed on the opposite side of the village to the toro. A few Lupata on guard moved discreetly away as Reuben ran up and nodded to them. "My lovely, strange creature, why do you run?" She took a shaky breath, fighting back the inevitable tears. "You've grown up, Reuben. You're a man," she said. She couldn't say the rest. She hung her proud head, and her freshly washed golden tresses slid across her face, protecting her. Fat, silent tears oozed out, and she squeezed her eyes together tightly, angered at their betrayal. Reuben said nothing. He simply took her in his arms and hugged her until his strength and warmth reached her deep inside. When he felt her calm, he said, "Felicity, we do not always have the answers in our life. We must have faith. If we really seek something, the answer will come when we're ready to hear it. Yes, I'm full grown. You are still a sapling." Felicity giggled soggily. "But you will mature, and I will be waiting, Felicity. Dear Felicity, if there is a way for us, if it's the will of both our worlds, and of the Great Spirit who is of all worlds, I will have you with me forever. Will you?" He released her carefully and waited. He took a great risk. He might terrify her, but he had to know. Felicity was unable to speak. This was all so unreal. She knew she loved him. She didn't see how that was possible, but she knew she did. She was Felicity Isabel Penfold from the centre of England. She was not quite 15, and last week she'd been making biscuits with Al. "Reuben," she said, and her voice sounded odd, small. "I have strong feelings for you. I think we both know that, but—" Her speech was cut as a crowd of strata eclipsed the rising moon and landed with a beating of their massive wings right in the middle of the village. Teepee doors were thrown back as everyone spilled out to see them. Reuben grabbed Felicity's hand, kissed it, and pulled her with him as he ran back to find out the news. "They don't like to fly at night usually," he said, with difficulty as he dragged her along. Felicity could feel the new strength in his arms as he pulled her off the ground a couple of times. They reached the crowd and Felicity stood with the others. Georges had barged in and stood by the teepee, his breath scattering the colour changes once again. They squealed and reformed. The strata began their song. "We come in strength, 12 abreast, to tell you key members dire news for the quest. The toxics in error have caused a great sin and swayed to their darkness some Sibyllin, the Oceanids from upper north. Request you come at once. We fly at dawn, the band entire. For Toro there comes a plunce." As they finished singing, Felicity heard a swishing sound, and a huge airborne sled appeared, carried by 8 large strata. It was huge. In the moonlight it was hard to see how it was made. Georges lowed indignantly. "My dear sirs, I am not, I repeat not, flying in that contraption. They were invented about 500 years ago. They are not tried and tested. In any case, my muscles are too heavy." Felicity heard a thorn snort that sounded suspiciously like Scrat. The tall, beaky strata with the red eyes peered over his crooked beak at Georges. His eyes flared with light, and Georges blew 2 streams of hot air from his dilating nostrils. All was silent as the battle of wills continued. The diplomacy of the strata must have won, for the tall bird bowed briefly, and Georges said, "All right. All right, in the name of this quest I will allow your most respected and strongest strata to carry me to the Oceanids. I accept the honour graciously." Reuben now stepped forward and bowed in greeting. "Welcome again, honourable peacemakers of our world. Your news is not unexpected. We had heard rumours," he said, glancing at Sib. "I am eager to meet with the Oceanids. Please take your rest in my homeland. The colour changes will bring you all you need. We shall prepare and we shall be ready." Reuben's grave voice rang out over the settlement. All who heard knew this was the last time they would see this valiant band. The future for all rested in them. The strata leader dipped his head in acknowledgement of this request, and they lifted gracefully away to the outer edges of the village, taking the plunts with them. All was activity and chatter as the entire village rallied to help prepare. Reuben watched Sib as he trundled across to the other sibling currently staying in the village. He knew this must be a great shock, that their own kind could betray the world. He was pleased to see Gus joining the group. His understanding would help them. Reuben looked forward to the full facts when they reached the upper north. It seemed fate had intervened for him with Felicity. Well, we needed time, he thought, and sought out his mother. He found her and his father by the food stores. His mother turned to face him. He has transformed, she realised with pride. Their eyes met, and he heard her voice gently cradle him. My son, my beautiful fine son. Her eyes glistened in the moonlight. He stepped forward and let her hold him tight. His father stepped forwards. We have taught you all we can, my son. With your travels, you continue to grow in wisdom, knowledge, and strength. Use your mature power wisely. Harness fear to keep you safe. Continue to find the strengths in your friends. And never abandon the energy of our world. It's your guardian and your ultimate protection. The toxics are strong and they're dark, but you have the light. Light vanquishes darkness. Remember that. As his father finished speaking, Felicity approached. Reuben, the others are not sure what we should take. Will we need food? Do we need protection from the cold? Mrs. O replied, Yes, my dear, it will be colder than the frozen wastes of the Lupata. At night you must smear yourselves with the phlebum I will provide. You must also take some bark balm. It will heal any wounds your party may sustain. It's usable by all beasts and plants when space is limited. She held out her arms to embrace Felicity. Keep my son safe, Felicity, she said, stumbling over Felicity's name. As Felicity and Reuben headed back to the others, his mother gazed after him with longing. Would she see him again? Mr. Orion held her for a moment. Trust, my beautiful lady. She breathed deeply to calm her spirit, and then took his hand, and together they made the necessary preparations for their son's final adventure.